Hey guys, welcome to another video on the Inside Spurs channel. Happy Thursday afternoon. Everyone is all right. Everyone's okay and looking after themselves. In this video, though, we are talking about Wolves left back Roman Ait Nouri, or AïT-NOURI, however you may want to pronounce it, or how it's ever pronounced, to be fair. But also, we're talking about Fabio Paratici and AC Milan's interest in bringing him in to basically run their club for once his suspension ends. So we're going to be talking about that. Obviously, look, I'm going to preface out every bit of transfer news that we get, be it someone that we're looking to buy or maybe put an offer in, someone that we're looking to sell. Always have to preface this with, it really doesn't mean too much until we know what's happening with the manager. Now, if Ange is here, then obviously we continue on like normal. You know, business is normal. He's here. We're looking to buy players for Ange Ball, and you know that happens. If it's not Ange and it's someone completely different, a lot of these stories are going to make no sense because the new manager coming in, you would think it doesn't always work like this at Spurs, but you would think with a competent side that the new manager's brought in and then they work with the club to find players that suit their style of play. So these players that we linked to may suit Ange, but if it's a different player, if it's a different manager, they may not suit that next manager. Okay, so I'm going to put that out there early doors, all right? So before anyone gets confused, okay? But we'll jump in and we'll start with Roman Ait Nouri. Morning Spurs, Yvonne, Dragon, Hawkeye, Eric, how are we all? So look, let's talk about Roman Ait Nouri. So look, on the left back side of things, we have Desir Doggy right now and Desir Doggy. Because I look at Jed Spence as a right back, that's what he is. Now, the fact that he has played well at left back is nice, but if that's the case, then you need to go and buy a new right back. Either way, you need to buy a fullback, okay? And for me, I'd rather Jed Spence play as the right back. Therefore, you got Porro, you got Spence, now you have Desir Doggy, and you need someone else with him over there. One, to rotate without the drop-off in quality. That's what good sides should do. But secondly, it also means that Destiny would rest. You don't have to run Destiny Doggy into the ground because you have no other left back. I think that's something that we have definitely failed in recruitment and anyone to do with the recruitments. That is across the board. So before someone goes, it's all Ange's fault. Ange's a part of the recruitment. They're all at fault for the fact that we have not given this squad a competent left back alongside Destiny Doggy. Sergio Reguilon is not that guy. You know I don't rate him. Simple as that, right? So on AïT-NOURI, Africa Foot saying that Tottenham made an offer for 30 million for AïT-NOURI. Now, there's different reports saying that it's absolute nonsense. I don't think it's true whatsoever. I'm going to be really real with you here. A lot of times you will find sources from where a player is from. So, for example, Brazilian sources on Brazilian players. They are normally ahead of the English media. Okay, they are. As much as they'll be ahead of Fabrizio Romano, they'll be ahead of David Ornstein, they'll be ahead of a lot of them quite frequently. Okay, I've known about Richarlison injury issues before hearing it from UK sources. There's players that have actually, like for example, I remember a really big one was Anthony joining Manchester United. Right, he was linked to Manchester United. And then a couple of days before it really kicked off, Brazil reports were saying, Manchester United anti, this is going to happen. And then 2 days later, Romano's on it, Ornstein's on it, whoever else is on it, they're all on it then. But the Brazilian reports 48 hours before them are right. Now, it doesn't mean they're always right. I'm just saying you take what they say and you sort of put it in the back of your mind and just go, maybe it's true. Now, look, the fact is they're thinking it's going to be 30 million. That's cute. That's really cute. He's going to be nowhere near 30 million. Okay. He is a very, very good left back. I've got a fantastic stat that I'm going to bring in just a second. He is a very good left back. And he will push Desir Doggy for that number one left back position, hands down. He might even beat him. You never know. It's all hypothetical, so it's really irrelevant if he does or doesn't right now. But regardless, you'd have two very, very solid left backs. He is going to cost at least 50 million, in my opinion. He's not going to be cheap. Now, the only way he's cheap is because they've been relegated, which I should probably have had this up. Just want to look at the Premier League table to know how far Wolves are off. Wolves are 9 points clear of relegation zone with 9 games to go. Bear in mind, Ipswich have lost 4 of the last 5, Leicester have lost 5 of the last 5, and Southampton lost 5 of the last 5. I don't even think Wolves need 40 points. I think Wolves probably need 2 more wins, and I think they'd be safe, because 2 more wins, you'd think there'd be a 15-point deficit that Ipswich and Leicester both need to make up within 9 games. Which are they going to? No. And also on top of that is Wolves' goal difference is -18. Ipswich is -34. So they're not getting relegated. So you're not going to get him on the cheap just because they're getting relegated. They're not getting relegated. The 3 teams that came up this year, they're going straight back down. Okay, which is an issue in itself, but that's a story for another day. He's not coming for that kind of money. He's going to come for about 50 and above. Okay. Now this season, I said it's Roman, it's Rayan. Apologies. Rayan Ait Nouri. He's 23. He'll be 24 at the start of June. He's an Algerian international. He's played 13 times. Now, he has a contract until the summer of 2026. So he does have 1 year left on his deal come this summer. But the club do have an option to extend for another year. So in reality, he has 2 years left on his deal. Okay. This season, across the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the EFL Cup, he's played 32 times. He's got 4 goals and 5 assists. So we're talking about 9 goal contributions this season for him. From a left back, that's incredible. It is. But for me, I don't think he's coming. I think, do you know what? He's gone under the radar this year because of players like Kirkes, right, at Bournemouth, who have had a really, really solid season. Rayan's gone under the radar because of that. He is still a very, very good left back. People talk about Robinson, very good left back. Kirkes, very good left back. AïT-NOURI, very good left back. There's quite a few in the league this year. Now, sort of looking at, there'll be teams in and around Europe that are looking for defenders, right? We know that. AC Milan, maybe Silenteo Hernandez and Como are interested in him. And they might want to get a left back in. But looking for us in the Premier League, you think Liverpool probably going to want a left back? And the 3 names that I said are all better than at least Tsimikas. Robertson, you might really, really rate, but regardless, they'd upgrade that left back room at Liverpool. City might do it, yeah. They could do probably an option alongside Gavardio. Arsenal, you would probably say no, but they love a defender. They've got 8,000, so maybe they'd twerk for another one. Chelsea, Cucurella's obviously their number 1 left back. He's had a very good season. Would they go for another? Chilwell's out on loan. Clearly not a guy that's in the Maresca good books, and maybe Chelsea. Man United just bought Dorgu. They've got Shaw. They've got Malacia. I don't think they'll be going left back. Villa got Digne and Matson. They won't be. Newcastle, I don't know if they would, to be honest. I don't know. So, there's going to be a few teams in this league that are looking at a left back, I don't know what Spurs will do in that regards. Could they get one of those 3? Absolutely. Absolutely, they could get one of those 3. At the end of the day, it's about wages. I've been saying it all along. There's a massive correlation between the 2 things. Success and paying out on players' wages is a major, major correlation. It's not everything, but it's a major factor in it. Any one of those 3, you could obviously give them that pay increase that would really entice them. But a Spurs going to want to spend that money on that kind of position where they look at it and, I've got a feeling that Davies is going to be here next season. Do I think he should be? Is a different question, but I think Davies will be here next season. They'll look at that. They'll look at Spence's emergence from this season, even though he's a right back. They'll look at Archie Gray and the fact that he can play right back if necessary. And they'll go, they probably don't need left back. We probably don't. We'll be all right. We'll get by. And obviously that is an attitude of a mid-table side. Obviously dropping on the wages front is an attitude of a mid-table and below side, which ironically, when you look at us right now, we're around the mid-table area. You would have to spend good money on any one of those 3. They're all about 50 and above. Now, look, if teams are going to go, we want 75 million for one of those fullbacks, you go, look, I hope he has a great season for you. we won't be going anywhere near him with a 20-foot pole. But if one of those clubs said 40 million would do it, I'd be all over there. I would snap their hand off, and I would put a secret service to surround him that no one could get near him. I'd even take his phone off of him and say, look, for 24 hours, no phone. We need to get this deal done. We don't want anyone coming near you. But I don't think that's realistic. I think they're going to go for way above 50, and I don't see anyone in our ideas getting in there. Morning, Joseph. How are you, my friend? Kookaburra, how are we? Morning. I think AïT-NOURI to Liverpool makes more sense, to be honest. I think Kirkaz makes quite a good sense to Liverpool, to be fair. I think Robertson, for me, to Liverpool, I think makes a ton of sense. He screams Liverpool for me, Robinson. I really do think so. I think Leif Davis and Tyreek Mitchell are more realistic options for us. Out of the two of those, you'd have to say Tyreek Mitchell's the one that you'd want, wouldn't it? You know. G'day, mate. Nice previous stream about Spurs fans' issues and how toxic people's view of our season with Ange this year. Keep up this type of discussion, mate. 5 stars, mate. Cheers. Appreciate it, DJ Classic Tunes. Not got any squash. I've just got a glass of water. I also am looking at potentially reaching out to some journalists who work for some of the clubs that we've been in, sort of loaning out players to. I just want to get like their views on the players that we've loaned out to them and how they've done. And things like that. It'd be something a bit different, a bit more of journalism thing that I'd be doing on this channel, which might be a bit of difference, might be a bit of fun. So I'm looking to do that this week, hopefully, if not next week, getting a few people on, even if it's just pre-recorded and it's not live, but just get their views on some of our players out on loan, especially because we do a loan roundup on this channel every Tuesday. Be good to get some views of the guys who actually cover those teams week in, week out and how players have done, you know. But anyway, let's talk about Paratici because, AïT-NOURI, last thing on AïT-NOURI. In terms of the fullbacks this season, he has the best grade in terms of defending players' dribbles. He is at 87.8 grade, which is crazy high. Lucas Digne, by the way, is the best at crossing at 90.8. The best athlete due to top speed is Anthony Robinson. The best all-round left-back this season has supposedly been Josko Gvardiol. So there you go. AïT-NOURI, probably you'd have to say he's been inside the sort of top 2 or 3 this season at left-back, which is bonkers because everyone will look at Wolves and how they've done this season and think that doesn't correlate, but it definitely does. You know, he's one player. Couple little bits on Fabio Paratici. Got a few different things, actually. We've got some Milan fans' views on it. We've got some reporting views. So let me start with Graham Bailey, who has said that Daniel Levy and Tottenham face disappointment over their quest to bring Fabio Paratici back to the club. Supposedly, he is close to being appointed as AC Milan's sporting director. Italian Football TV have said that Milan have chosen Paratici as their next director. They're convinced with the experience he has and how he's handled both established and young players. His suspension from football expires on July the 20th, so he could start as an external consultant first, which is kind of what he is at Spurs already. Kind of giving you a bit of a view as to what some Milan fans said. There was someone who tweeted out saying that he would love it if Paratici comes to Milan and he does to Milan what he did to Juventus. He may become one of my favourite people. Don't get me wrong. I think Paratici is a good judge of talent. He was a brilliant head scout at Juventus. But so far, he has been a poor sporting director. He signs decent talents, but they rarely are a good fit with the club. Here is hoping Paratici hasn't changed and Milan continue to perform as a team which is less than the sum of its individual parts. That's damning. We as Spurs fans obviously have, you know, a fond view of Paratici. You know, some deals have been great and I think they've worked out. I mean, Dejan Kulusevski being a big one of that recently. And some deals I think haven't worked the way that we would want to. Brian Hill being a big one on that front. And I've always said, no, he's good at bringing players in. He's active in the market. He's always trying to do deals. But one of his biggest flaws for me is moving players on. There's a reason we had a really bloated squad. You know, we had too many players in and around the squad. Even though some of them wouldn't have ever played for Spurs, they're still a part of the squad. It's a bloated squad because we could never move a player on. And he had a massive part in that. There's a reason why, for example, this summer, last summer, that's been, Johan Lang had to work overtime to get rid of players. They bought players out of their deals. They still needed to do a little bit more. And this summer, some of the work they need to do will be done for them, e.g., Sergio Reguilon's contract will be up, Werner will be leaving. There's players that are going to be leaving because their contract or deals are up. But we needed to clear out, 12, 15 players last summer because of people like Fabio Paratici and their deals. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been some really, really good players that he's brought in, and I'm not denying that. Not every deal is ever going to work at every club, okay? I think some Spurs fans feel like if we buy a player, it should be the world's greatest player after a couple of years. If it's not, it's a complete failure, which obviously there's an issue in our sort of views on sort of transfers. But as much as, there's been some really good stuff, let's be fair, moving on from players has been really one of Spurs' biggest issues when it comes to the transfer market. As much as we could spend more, and we should be spending more on wages, absolutely we should be spending more on wages. Some of our talent ID has been very, very poor. Like Richarlison, we bought 60 million, right? Anthony Gordon was 40 million. Like, as much as you always get those Bergvall deals, he's like 8 million. That's great. And Bergvall is, is going to be an absolutely phenomenal player. But for as many deals you get like that, look at Brian Hill's deal. It's 25 million plus Lamella. And then they end up getting Brian Hill back on loan to them. So they end up getting both players and 25 million. And, like I said, there's good and bad in every single sporting director. Not everyone has done perfectly. Not every player that is bought at a club does well. I mean, people talk about Brighton, for example. Not every player they've bought has been perfect. Mohamed Dahoud didn't work out in the midfield. He's at Frankfurt, I believe, now. So even though he's third in the Bundesliga in terms of a club, doesn't mean it's the right, move for him there and then. They can still be good players. So, I don't know. I'm in a weird mindset with Paratici. I like Paratici. I think there's more good than bad. Is Paratici the be all and end all of our season and going forward? No, not at all. I always said, if you want to have Paratici, you need to have someone else alongside him who actually can sell players because he can't. He struggles. And I was thinking, that's Daniel Levy's strong suit is selling a player. He makes the most out of every deal, and it didn't work. And that's the issue with some sporting directors. When some people go, we want Daniel Levy to step aside from the footballing decisions, it's like, yeah, but when you bring a guy in who can do 50% of that job, let's say there's only two things you do in the job is buy and sell players. There's obviously not, but let's say there is. He can do 50% quite well, and the other 50% he's really poor at. Well, you need someone that can do both jobs competently at least. I can't have one good, one bad. Because at some point, you do actually have to move off of players. You do have to sell players. Like this summer, we've talked about Basuma having interest from clubs in and around Europe. Like, Bentancur potentially. Ben Davies, what's going on there? We obviously know about players leaving on frees and things like that, but there might be other players in the squad that we get some decent offers for. What happens with Richarlison? And you've got to have that idea that you need to be able to move off of players, and it's not always about sort of bleeding every penny for every deal. Like I've said, for example, on Basuma, if someone offered me 15 million on Basuma, I'd just take it. I would just take it and I would go. If someone offers me a deal similar to the Højbjerg deal, which was it was 12 and a half reaching 17 and a half with some pretty easy bonuses, I'd take that. So, Johan Lang, the irony is we'd want Paratici and Lang at the club. Johan Lang, not very good at bringing in players, hence why Ange just had to do his job for him. Paratici can't sell players. Okay. Swap them over. Swap them over. Paratici, you're buying the players. Johan Lang, you're selling the players. We'd have the perfect people in those roles. Because Johan Lang can move on players. That wasn't an issue this summer. We just cut ties. We're not even going to extend some players. We're just going to cut ties, move them on. Easy job. Right. Højbjerg, decent deal, I think. 17.5 million from the guy in his late 20s. I think it's a decent deal. They bought out in Ndombele. Smart business move. You know, they got 7 odd million for Troy Parrott. Probably now we could have gotten more, but it's still 7 million. You just take it and move. If he's not a part of the Spurs' plans and it's 7 million, you just take it and move. Not every deal has to be, we're getting 50 million for every player. So sometimes being cutthroat is what we need, and we didn't have that at Paratici. Hey, Jake, how are you? Brazilian Wesley for right back, AïT-NOURI left back, Jan Bakayoko be happy these 3 signings. I don't think Bakayoko will be a guy we'll be going for. Vanderson could be someone from Monaco that we revisit potentially. He's been a guy that we linked to quite a few times. I don't know how true this is, but apparently Paratici completely restructured the scouting departments at Youth Academy. The scouting has been bad in my opinion, but the Youth Academy looks promising. Yes, they did a lot of work in the Youth Academy because it was so poor for so long. The best product we had coming out of the academy in the last 10 years is Harry Winks and Oliver Skipp. In terms of players that have come through and played for Spurs. Harry Kane, I think, was a little bit before that, hence why I've not put Harry Kane in there. That's really the best in the last 10 years that have come through and played for Spurs. That's appalling. It is. I'm not counting Mikey Moore. He's only had a few months. Not counting Lancashire and Scarlett. You know, in terms of guys that have played actual football, meaningful football for Spurs, they're the best. That's not good enough. It isn't. I mean, if you look at Chelsea, think of all that talent that came through their academies. I mean, Man United have been bringing through some really exciting players. If you think about Arsenal, Arsenal brought through some exciting players. And we're talking about just the last 10 years. If you think about, you know, obviously Arsenal's a Saka, but, you know, if you think about Chelsea, it's like Colwill, Tomori, Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, to name just a few. There's so many more, but just to name a few. Mason Mount for them in his last season was their best player. They obviously then sold him for 55 million. Conor Gallagher is another one they brought through. Man City bringing through players like Rico Lewis. You know, we've not had a player of like that sort of standard, you know, playing week in, week out football for us. Hence why when it comes to Europe, we're so screwed squad size wise because these players that are young now playing for us are great, but they need multiple years to be counted as academy trained players in Europe, which then allows you to have a bigger squad. There's a reason why Alfie Whiteman and Brandon Austin are so important. It's because they count. Like Mikey Moore doesn't count in that regard. Lancashire, Scarlett, none of them count in that regard. Oliver Skipp would have counted. Winks, Kane, both counted. And that's why it's an issue. So he put a lot of effort into that and it has improved. Absolutely. You see some of the ballers that are coming through. And also, it's the idea that sometimes you buy some younger players as well to keep developing on the academy. Mason Meslier, like obviously he'll be joining, looks incredible. You know, that's why you bring in Bergvals and Greys and Vuskovics and things like that. So, in terms of the scouting, I think there's been some good moves scouting front wise. I think they brought in the data system as well as Johan Lang to develop on the scouting system, hence why the Bergvals and the Vuskovics really shone through. And Bergval's obviously been one of our best players this season, you know. If you ask Twitter back in like December, he was one of our worst signings ever, but there you go. Do you think fans' expectations are too high? Maybe because of reaching the Champions League final, perhaps we aren't really a top club, so no need to lower our expectations given ENIC aren't going anywhere. We shouldn't lower our expectations in terms of we demand as fans, if we pay, you know, some of the most insane prices on tickets and things like that, we demand quality, we demand success. One trophy in 2 decades is appalling. It's not good enough. It isn't, you know, and that falls on ownership's head the most. It doesn't fall on like Ange for 18 months of a 2-decade period. You know, if it does, then it falls on Poch's head, it falls on Mourinho's head, it falls on Conte's head. It doesn't. It falls on their head the most. They've been the common denominator across the board. If we are to pay the prices that we pay, we deserve to be rewarded. And we've been paying these sort of crazy prices for a while now. Okay. It's not just under Ange. Okay. I promise you it's not. They get excited about how we are a top 10 club in the world in terms of revenue, right? They get really excited by that. Like I was explaining to someone that you don't hear from Daniel Levy unless it's talking about how great our results on the spreadsheet look. Then you hear it from him, right? Where if we're 8th in the world in terms of revenue, then why are we not, you know, fighting for European trophies more frequently? Why are we not fighting for domestic things more frequently, because that top 8 includes like the Real Madrids, it includes Barcelona's, it includes Bayern Munich's. It's not just Manchester City and Manchester United. I mean, Manchester United, look how bad they are at the moment. They won the FA Cup last season. I mean, we forget about that. They won a trophy last season. They finished below us in the league, but they won a trophy. Technically, they had a better season than us. We finished 5th, they finished 8th, but they won that trophy. They had a better season than us, because guess what? They're in the Europa League just like us. And they still are. They're in the Europa League still now to this point. They knocked out Sociedad. Couldn't tell you who they have in the next round. Don't really care either. But they're still having just the same season as we are. But they've won trophies in the last 10 years. We haven't. So we should lower our standards. We should keep our standards high, but also we need to be realistic, though. There's a difference. Keep standards high, but be realistic. I think some people's standards are like here. Well, it should be about here, somewhere around this area, where it's like we need to be fighting every year for trophies. Okay, you're not going to win a trophy every single season. You don't. But you need to be fighting every single year, winning a trophy every few years at least. We don't do that. We cut back on our wages on players, which in turn turns away players coming to us who are of a good standard. Yeah, of course, the young players don't mind that, because they want to build up their sort of demand on what they can charge on wages to play for your club. But the players that are ready to go right now, they'll look at Spurs and go, why would I go there? I mean, the wages aren't very good for a player of my age, let alone the fact we're not winning anything. There's a lot of toxicity, there's a lot of things that go into it. So, yeah, a lot of issues. Our wage bill is the biggest problem. Is quality players avoid us unless they're 17, 18. I mean, there you go. Naughty paper clips, the same thing as I do. Morning round table, how are you, my friend? So, look, we'll see about Paratici. I think he will move on. I think Milan is something that would suit him. I don't know what's going on at Milan right this second. It's a weird one. I don't really get it, to be honest. Their whole situation is just mental. I mean, the fact that Como, who are a team that just come up, want to try and buy their captain, Teo Hernandez, and they might cash in on him, says a lot about, Milan and also Teo Hernandez, to be honest. Keep getting told that Teo Hernandez is an unreal left back. Every time I watch Milan, he's crap. I don't get what everyone sees in him. I really don't. Oh, he can run quick. Cool. I'd rather Mickey van der Ven at my left back position, because he's faster and he can defend. And he doesn't dive. Hernandez has got a real diving problem. But anyway, there's enough about that. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Thanks very much for watching. Hopefully, you're going to be having some stuff going on here in the next video, but also going to be reaching out to some journalists today, hopefully getting some interviews surrounding some players out on loan. So hopefully we'll see about that. But anyway, go enjoy the rest of your days, afternoons, evenings, wherever you're in the world, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Take care. Peace.